and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence,
And I'm Meg Hofdahl.
and today we're talking about The Changeling. How are you, Meg?
I'm so good. How are you, Kelly?
Yeah, no, I'm so good too because it's starting to be spring, and we had a long winter in Minnesota. I mean, maybe everybody had a long winter, but every day that I go outside in the early morning, I'm like, the sun is shining brighter than it was the day before, you know?
It makes a difference. I mean, the whole idea of how long the sun is out and getting some vitamin C and just getting some light on your face.
Or vitamin D.
I mean vitamin D. Okay, are you a fucking scientist? Sorry.
No, the only reason I know that is because my doctor was like, you should take a vitamin D supplement in the winter. And I'm like, oh, is my vitamin D low? She's like, everybody in Minnesota's is low.
Yeah, I probably should. Maybe it's why I've been losing my mind.
But yes, it's going to be actual spring soon and then summer and life is good.
I've been doing that thing where where it's you're really deep into the winter and you're like, I should live in Hawaii. Where you're having really those thoughts that are they're completely not reality, but you're like, maybe I should just move,
Vienna said the other day it was probably 20 below waiting for the school bus. She's like, why do people live here?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, it's a good point. She's like, why don't people live where it's sunny and warm all the time? I'm like, people do. It's summer in Australia right now.
It's just not us. No, I think about that all the time. Who were the settlers who were like, yeah, this is good. This'll work. I don't know.
Well, we're here. So
that went really dark.
I know. Oh, okay. The Changeling. First of all, this came on Shudder a couple months ago, and I kept hearing. Beside that, I kept hearing people say The Changeling has one of the creepiest sequences in a ghost story that I've ever seen in my life, and it was really built up for me. And I had heard, I mean, there's that Angelina Jolie movie called Changeling, but I had heard of this movie, but I had never seen it. Had you seen this movie?
Yeah, I saw this movie when I was probably about 15 or 16. And I thought about it a lot. As I was watching it this time, I was thinking about my 15-year-old self and about how that's how I chose to spend my weekend, was watching old George C. Scott, ghost movie. And I was like, I love that. I can be really crabby about social media and stuff, and there are things about it I really don't like. But one thing that I do like about it is that there are a whole ton of us that when we were that age, and now that's how we choose to spend our weekends. And I was so alone. I didn't know people who like to do that. Until I met you, I didn't know other teenagers who would want to sit and watch a quiet George C. Scott ghost movie when they were that age. So I just was thinking about that, and I was like, it's so cool that people can connect now on those levels, and we can meet people and listen to podcasts by people who like doing the same things. And I felt like such a weirdo, but I wasn't really.
Yeah, exactly. I remember too. I mean, just within the past, 15 years, seeing some posts or things, and it's like, wait, I've had that thought too, and I thought I was the only one. And so it's nice. Oh, okay, I'm not alone in this world.
Yeah. So I did see it, and then what stuck in my head about it since I've seen it, when when we chose to watch it, the thing that came to my head was the digging up, kind of like Ring style, where they dig up in the bedroom. That's the thing that had stuck in my head from it.
Okay. This movie came out in 1980. It had a budget of $600,000. It made 5.3 million at the box office, and it's 80% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, this was based on a true story of a playwright who moved into an old mansion in Denver, Colorado. He actually found a journal kept by a disabled boy that was exactly like in the movie, being kept away in a room. He actually found the medallion. This all really happened in real life. That how he really had a seance to contact the boy, and allegedly did. The house ended up being demolished, and they built apartments over that spot.
Oh, boo. That's my dream, to find, like the other day, I was painting in my guest room, and I took apart the vent thing to paint around it, and I found an old sticker like on a piece of paper from like the 80s, and I found a playing card. But if I had found a journal from like
Of a boy being
yeah.
trapped in a room.
Oh my God, that's my dream. Like to find like an old journal or like a book in the others like of people pictures of dead people, or I don't know, like I want that so bad, like to go on to like a mystery, and I have to like it's like I'm sorry, stop everything. I have to go use microfiche and like find out what the hell happened in this house.
I know, how amazing. That's such a great premise. So I'm glad they wrote a book, I mean a movie on it. Also, did you recognize any of where it was being filmed?
Yeah, so it was kind of cool because it's the movie's filmed in Vancouver, and nothing. I mean, there are a couple things that you just get used to the vibe, and like you feel Vancouver. Being that it was 1980, it's before my time living there, but I was saying to Luke the other day, so when we went back to Vancouver most recently this past summer, my childhood home had been torn down, and everything was kind of changing. It's a big city and things change. And I said, it kind of bums me out. It's kind of like not the best feeling. But I said what's so cool about having grown up there is it's been chronicled in film so much that if I ever feel like I want to look at what it used to look like when I was growing up there, I can literally watch the X-Files or I can watch something and it's like chronicled there. So that was like my way of, so when I was watching The Changeling and I was thinking about, oh, this is like before that was torn down or that, it was kind of nice. So, yeah.
Yeah, oh, that's nice. I see too that it was filmed a little in Victoria. Have you been to Victoria?
Yeah, Victoria is great. It's you have to take a ferry across. We actually took the boys there when we were there most recently, and it's just a really neat town with lots of old buildings, so I can see why they would choose to do some filming there.
Very nice. Okay, this movie starts off. First of all, George C. Scott, to me, he's always Scrooge, because that's the Scrooge I grew up with. Did you watch that A Christmas Carol adaptation?
Yeah, I feel like that's the one teachers like to show a lot too. So yeah, that's probably what I would think of him most from too.
And it starts off with this family and this horrific car accident. I cannot imagine anything worse than losing your entire family.
Yeah, I love that setup. I love a tragic backstory and how it kind of like propels the character and in horror and like how it ends up kind of probably being the reason he's obsessing over certain things and stuff. So I like that backstory. I think the only thing I didn't like is that, and I kept thinking, and I went and looked while I was watching it because I'm like, I wonder if this is based on a book, because I could see this being a really good book because you're in his head all the time. But what I didn't like was I just felt like it was him alone a lot, and so he's not giving you the Nicole Kidman like face very much. Like you can't. There's not a lot to read there, and so if he's not giving you the emotions of finding these things, and he's more stoic, I was having trouble like connecting. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I mean, he's a great actor, but I think he's playing this stoic, unfeeling or trying to be unfeeling man, and yeah, I'm not connecting either. Oh, I wish the setup of this. I wish that they really did let people live in historic homes to take care of them. They definitely don't, but wouldn't that be cool?
It would be so cool. And I kept thinking too, okay, so if your whole family's dead, would you I was in like two camps. I was watching it thinking, would I want to go move into this old creepy house and like just become Miss Havisham and like just like walk the halls in like and just be dramatic? Or if I was in that situation, would I want to like not completely alienate myself and be in this big house all by myself? I don't know. I just feel like maybe that's not a great plan when you're in his situation. I don't know.
And he's a composer. I mean, it's interesting, and that like his friends are doing him a solid and getting him this like teaching position in this house so he can sort of get his mind off it and move on. Did you see the size of that class though? Like no wonder these huge universities have like teaching assistants, because there's no way you could possibly grade all those papers.
That's
what I'm thinking about.
Said like a true teacher. No, I didn't notice.
There were like hundreds of people in one class. I heard somebody the other day was like, "Oh, why is this online class limited to 50? Like, it should be unlimited." And it's like, no, somebody has to correct all those papers.
Yeah, what did they think? Like, you have to read what they do.
So yes, that was my thing. Oh, he's back in the house, and like the water is running and getting put on in different rooms, which is creepy. But the ball coming down the stairs, that moment would have I would be out and I would never come back.
No, it would literally just take one ball going down the stairs for me to be like, no, I'm good. I'm out. I agree. This movie is very much the tropes of like ghosts. I mean, if somebody's like, show me a classic ghost movie, I think there's like so many things. I'm curious to know what was the sequence everybody was talking about that was the scariest.
What they mentioned, and it did freak me out, is the wheelchair.
Oh. What is it about an old wheelchair? Like, if you saw just a regular wheelchair just sitting there, like, you would just be like, okay. But there's just something about this old, like, ancient type of wheelchair where it's just like...
Because it's definitely a ghost.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess people aren't using them now, so... Yeah, it made me think of like Silent Hill, because there's like, I feel like there's a lot of those kind of wheelchairs all over.
Yes, and the seance scene is done in a way that creeped me out. And then when he's listening to the recording later, and you didn't hear it in the room, but it's on the recording, which some ghost detectors have told us happens. Like if that happened to me and I was hearing like a small child talking to me through a recording, like what if I listen to this later when I'm editing this episode and it's like, help me, Meg.
Like, I would not have a George C. Scott stoic face, that's for sure. Oh my god.
Help me.
You'd also be rich too, though.
Wait, why?
Because you have the first proof of a ghost. I'm always thinking about those Benjamins.
I mean, I think I would throw myself out a window, so I don't think I'd be rich. I'd be dead because I'd be so scared. Okay, this sequence then that I think that this is in flashback or something. They show the father killing the son in the bathtub. Oh my god.
I kept thinking, because I keep talking about the others because it's very others-like. And I was thinking, here's a good example. And we were talking about this with the Ted Bundy documentary, where if you don't show and you don't talk about like the brutality of the murder, we can forget like how awful a person is. And like in the Ted Bundy documentary, they don't actually really talk about the murders themselves in great detail, and so it kind of ends up making us forget like how brutal and terrible Ted Bundy is. And I was thinking about this movie and how they showed it, and it's horrible, it's awful. And in the others, they decided not to show it, and how that decision helps us then feel more empathy for Nicole Kidman. But if they had showed it, what would that have done to us?
Absolutely. And that's why, people are currently having this argument about glorifying murderers or killers versus and how much do you show in order to who are you empathizing with and for what reason? And it's all in the storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about Nicole Kidman's character in the others killed both of her children in pretty much the same way, right?
Yeah.
But you come out of that movie feeling a whole other different way than you do in this movie about the man who did that. And of course, we don't get to see any other aspect of him either. But it's just interesting how something like that can change the whole trajectory of the movie itself, and how seeing it was just so disturbing. I mean, that was a good job. I think that'll be the thing that sticks in my head, especially because now I watched it as a parent. But that'll be the thing that sticks in my head from the movie, is that particular scene.
Yeah, I think that was pretty brutal, like for 1980 too. Like that's pretty brutal. does it ever go well when you set a soul free from a haunted house? Like, has it ever gone well? I feel like this is a recurring theme. They're like, oh, I set the soul free. It's going to be fine now. And then shit hits the fan.
And then there's always like 20 more minutes left of the movie, so it's like, no, no, it's not gonna work out. Yeah, I mean, this movie does kind of have some similarities to like The Ring, where there's that digging down and the same thing, where it's like, it'll be fine, yeah, it'll be fine, like, I'm just gonna let her free, but it's like, no. So, that therein lies something there too, that I was thinking about with this movie, is the the whole concept of the changeling and how the guy killed his child and then adopted another child that is well, but so much blame was put on the other child, but he was a child. He was a child that was adopted from a orphanage. Like, he could not be any more blameless. Yet George C. Scott's character really turns the heat on him, and the ghost comes and kills him. So I thought that was like kind of slightly unfair.
Yeah, I agree. This must have been the ghost kid. I said the kid floating at some point. Like, we see a kid floating.
Oh, I think.
Or is it the floating in the water?
Yeah, it was the water, because the little girl's like having dreams or something, because he's buried under.
Yeah, no, yes, that was so creepy. And then I was saying too, like, the mystery aspect of this is good because we don't know if we can trust the ghost's version of events or if they're just telling, if he's being told pieces in order to lead him astray.
That's true. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I thought it was interesting to point out that the main female in this movie is George C. Scott's fourth wife, um, which I just thought was interesting.
Were they married at the time?
Yeah, so that was kind of cool. I was doing some research and I saw that he married his third wife twice. So I was getting into I was getting deep into his IMDb.
Oh, wow, okay. Um, I mentioned more than once in my notes about this wheelchair moving on its own, and that, like, if an old wheelchair just started like rolling down my hallway right now, would you ever step foot in my house again?
No. An old wheelchair.
I mean, it would make zero sense.
It was one of the buzzy. It was a new one, and it just came.
A rascal scooter.
A rascal scooter just came in here.
I mean, that would be more plausible because it's like, oh, the computer chip is like defective.
Yeah. But if it's got cobwebs on it and it's got if it looks like an old rocking chair, then no, it's not okay.
I mean, like, the meme is like, oh, ghosts in these old houses are always like Victorian and saying things like, "Mummy,"
Yeah.
But what if it was like, it's Britney, bitch,
Yeah.
like a 2000s ghost.
Yeah, I have seen that meme. It's true though. I mean, it's a good point.
So maybe we should update the Changeling with a rascal scooter.
Oh my god, that'd be so scary.
Okay, I wrote down that it would have been cool if the version of the car accident in the beginning wasn't accurate and he had actually killed his wife and daughter and the ghost was punishing him for it. I was like, this would be a better twist. Like, he's remembering, because this untrustworthy, unreliable narrator thing with the ghost had me thinking, what if he's just imagining, like, his way of coping was like, no, they died in this car accident by accident, but what if he had actually killed them? And he's misremembering. And the ghost is like, we know the truth. I don't know. I'm just rewriting this movie.
Yeah, well, that would be a really good movie. I would watch that movie, so write that movie.
Okay. I will. And then I said, sorry, Historical Society, that house that you had this guy watch, it's burned to the ground, so good job.
I guess this is why they don't do it anymore. Like, always somebody has to ruin it for everybody. There's always that one asshole.
Like, we could be living in the Glen Sheen mansion right now, but instead, like, George C. Scott had to ruin it for all of us.
Typical.
I thought this was a solid movie. Like you said, it's hard to always get into his perspective and him as an actor, knowing what he's feeling and thinking and going through. I think it's a really solid ghost story, though, and it surprised me. I don't know why I never saw it before.
I think it's a good ghost story. I like the research aspect. I don't mind the sort of tropes of the ball going down the stairs and like the water running and all those. I like old house horror movies. But when I think about how The Shining came out that same year, it just is like not even in the same ballpark to me, and part of that is just compelling characters. He just wasn't. I just was struggling to like. I don't know. But one thing I will say though that I did appreciate about this movie is it's a much older cast, which you don't see all the time. He was obviously older when he made this movie, but everybody in the movie, almost everyone, was in their 50s, 60s, like that. And I was like, that's nice. You don't get that every day. Especially not long after that, it kind of seemed like every horror movie then was about teenagers and stuff. So, it's kind of nice to see a horror movie that's for a more seasoned group of people, you know?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I mean, there were some really old, but like that one old guy was really old.
Yeah, like that one.
You know who I mean, right? Like the
Yeah.
child who got adopted or whatever.
Yeah, he was super old.
Good work for you said these seasoned actors. So, it's fine.
it There was a lot of me like kind of looking at the clock. Like there was a lot of me like being this is slow. And then like I said I kept thinking about how I sat and watched it when I was a teenager, and I don't know about you, but I feel like I had more patience then because I didn't have a life. Now,
Well, also, we didn't have the other 20 things to be looking at or choices to be made. Like, this was the movie you rented, you had to watch it.
oh, that's true. It was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna put all my money on this. I can't just like switch over. That's true. And I think too, yeah, it's just life where you're like, okay, I've got to do this, I have to do that. And when there's a really slow scene and the character isn't quite bringing me in, then and that's kind of how I have to judge it is like how much is my mind wandering, how much am I like looking at the clock. And this one, there were times where I was getting into it, but most of the time I felt a little bored and kind of outside of it a little bit.
All right. Well, let's rank this movie on a scale of 0 to 10. What do you want to pick for our scale?
How about wet balls? Because it came back after he threw it in the lake or whatever. That's how you know it's not okay. It came back, okay? Yeah, let's do wet. Was it a billiard ball? What kind of freaking ball was that?
Or like I know what, like not squash. What is, whatever that game is. Anyway, when somebody hears like we're talking about wet balls, they'll be like, what? What movie? But how many do you give this movie? 0 to 10. 0 being hated it, 10 being you think it's a perfect movie.
I'll give it a 6 because it had good music, good acting. It had some really beautiful shots in it. I love the setting, but it was a little boring sometimes.
I'm going to give it a 7. I did think these sequences with the water running, the kid floating in the water and being killed, and the wheelchair moving on its own, that was creepy, and it made me feel away. So I'm giving it a 7.
Right. I approve.
We hope that you don't have any rascal scooters or antique wheelchairs zooming around your house, rewinders.
I mean, if there's somebody in them, it's okay. Don't yell ghost.
Yeah. God, no, yeah, like things moving on their own that, without being powered or controlled. Ugh.
It's not okay. If there is an old wheelchair upstairs in your attic with cobwebs on it, and I mean, you don't need it, right? Donate it to the historical society.
Yeah.
Get
Or
it out
your
of
local
house.
theater company, because they'll probably use it.
Yeah, good point. I mean, just get those like haunted things out of your house.
So if there's any historical societies that need a couple of women to come and like take care of your house for a couple months or whatever, I think we're up for it.
Well, not if it's haunted.
But maybe if it's haunted, you just said you wanted an adventure.
I did. I want to find old journals in the walls. I just don't know if I want like a succubus sitting on my chest.
You just don't want the consequences.
Yeah. That's me. That's typical me. I want all the fun, but when it gets serious, I run.
Oh, okay. Until next time, we'll see you in the horror section.
Bye.